Hey guys, this is Brad from Blue Nile Farm. Today I'm going to show you a quick way how to de-thaw a round bale that's been frozen or really wet, that's in good shape, that you want to actually feed out inside your barn. You know, I feed out frozen bales to my horses all the time, and I'm going to show you in this video how they actually consume frozen bales. But if you actually have to unravel a round bale and it was wet or frozen, I'm going to show you a way of de-thawing them, even if you want to put them out in pasture. But this is a quick, easy way to de-thaw, and it works out really good for me, and I want to pass on the information to you. So stay tuned and we'll get into it. So here are some of the round bales that we've actually taken out of the barn itself. We set them up in here. This is my wood chip pile. And I try to use the wood chips to kind of keep them elevated off the ground a little bit. But you're going to see that I have snow, I have ice, you know, that's going into this bale, and the bale itself is very dry and very good. So by, you know, getting these out of here and getting this freeze off, especially if you're feeding inside the barn, is a huge thing to deal with. And I'm going to show you how we deal with that here in a second. But these are the condition of the bales. They're sitting here. The bottoms may be wet, the tops may be wet, but overall, the inside and the whole core is good. And we've been, like I said, I put them out for the horses. They'll eat the center out. But if you're inside a barn and you need to unwrap them and feed them, I'm going to show you how we deal with that. And maybe that'll help you down the road. So every round bale that I've been feeding out this year has been exposed to the weather. And that's because if you followed my channel, I had my barn collapse in around Thanksgiving. And so these bales have been exposed to the weather for about a month and a half to 2 months. So they're coming in frozen. A lot of times they have snow on them, but they're almost 99% good, other than that type of condition that they're in. A lot of times it's just frozen or wet. So to alleviate the wetness and the freeze, we bring them in the barn and let them air dry. And as long as they're able to dry in the barn, it works out really good. But a lot of times when we unstring these bales and we feed them out to each individual horse, because I don't have, we're not making squares right now. So basically, and I'm not rebaling because of the weather, we're basically unwrapping all these bales to be fed out. These 4x4 bales will be gone about 1.5 to 2 days to the horses while they're inside. But the biggest problem is getting the string off when we get the freeze off of the bales. So what we've learned is we've taken a bullet heater that's over 200,000 BTUs, keep it about 4 foot away, and actually start that bullet heater and start blowing on the hay. And as it starts to melt off the freeze, the bale starts to become pliable, and by getting yourself in about 4 inches of hay and actually starting to separate off the bale, it's allowing it to dry very quickly, and it's easier for us to feed it. And we have very little waste to it. So if you are dealing with frozen hay and bales that are hard to manage, try a bullet heater. Make yourself in a safe area. Make sure that you're confident you're not going to catch your barn on fire or your bales on fire. And I'm pretty sure you won't. Just don't leave it. You know, stand there, watch it, maintain it, you know, and control it at all times. And I think you'll be fine. Because realistically, these bales are wet. You know, they may be dry on the inside, but the bullet heater just basically puts out forced air. And once it gets started, you know, you're not going to have any sparks or anything going to it. And if you keep it about 4 foot away or so, you know, use your judgment on what you're doing. But as this bale starts to dry out, take that roll and start to pull it off away from the bale and let that air go through. And as it starts to separate, it'll dry very quickly, and you'll be very happy with the results. But do not do this unattended. Make sure you're there at all times. Watch your hay and keep your eye on that bullet heater. And I think you'll be fine. Make sure you have a fire extinguisher or something to douse it if necessary. But I'm really sure that you won't have a fire. And if you do this properly and you pay attention, you can dry out hay very quickly. And it'll make a big difference when you're dealing with frozen bales. Now, if you're up here in northeastern Ohio, maybe you're in the Midwest, maybe even up in Alaska, you probably deal with frozen hay all the time. Now, this is dry hay, too. Let me get this straight. This is not baleage. This hay has been baled, and it's been stored at, you know, about 10 to 15% moisture. So there's nothing wrong with the center of this bale. It's just the outside gets frozen. It's hard to work with. And once you get that top layer off, you're fine. But you don't want to waste it because there's still good hay in there, just frozen. So, again, bullet heater will save your day. Trust me. So we're going to use this 215,000 BTU bullet heater by Master. We're going to use it as forced air, plugging it in, blowing heat about 4 to 5 feet away onto the bale, and it'll produce enough heat to basically dry this out. And that's relatively all you have to do. And because you're starting off at a good distance and that bale's wet, you're very less likely ever to catch this on fire. And if you're blowing sparks out of this, something's wrong here. So make sure, basically this thing should be working and just push out forced air and you'll be good. So let me show you how it's done. You can see as I'm standing here, I got a lot of heat blowing through here. This bale here is really wet. So now you can move it a little closer and get it to really start to hit. So I'm only about 2.5 to 3 feet away, and you can see from the distance, I'll show you, you'll see how this bale is actually moving. So probably about 10 minutes of it working, this thing will be really, really dry, and we can rotate this. So if you're out here and you're running the bullet heater, and it's really wet, say in the corner, and maybe it's really cold out, you'll see the actually like steam rising. Don't get scared, it's not like your bale's catching on fire. What's happening is it's just so wet and so cold, it's drying itself out. It really does a nice job. And that's why it's nice, because you can move this around. You know, this hay here right up top here is really wet. So the more I can dry this, the better off I'll be. Even if I flip it up and let it naturally dry, that's okay. But you know, the bullet heater will do a really nice job just kind of moving this around and drying it out. It makes it easier for you to handle. You know, if you're only feeding out, you know, a round bale, you know, like for us, we'll feed a round bale out in a day and a half to 2 days. You know, we'll unroll it and we'll roll it down the driveway, down the aisleway here. It's a lot easier. But the biggest problem is if they come in frozen because they're sitting outside, you know, it's hard to handle and you don't want to waste your hay. So by actually allowing the bullet heater to dry this out, it's just going to work out so much better for you, and you're not going to waste any of the hay. The horses specifically will eat wet hay. It just doesn't have to be super wet and gooey. You know, this hay, like I said, is not damaged and moldy. It's good hay. It just got wet or it's frozen. If we had a lot of hay in here and it was warm, you can easily air dry. But being inside like we are right now, it works out fine using this machine, because you know we can just kind of work it out and work it to our favor. If you're dealing with net wrap, you're dealing with the same problem. You know, you don't want to have ripped up net wrap fed to the animals. So the quicker you can dry out a bale, the better off you can manage it. You know, like I say, a lot of people are going to think that this is kind of a crazy idea because of the potential for a fire. But realistically, if you do it safely and you're here and you pay attention to what you're doing, you'll be okay. You can do it outside if you want. You can put these on pallets if you want. I'm just doing it in the barn because we just happen to be here. And, you know, we just had this issue with water coming in. But, you know, just keep that a good couple feet away at least. Stand there, watch it. If it starts to heat up and it starts to smoke, a lot of times it's just evaporation going on here with the bale, but it's not going to actually catch on fire, so don't worry about that. Again, you could feel it. But it really dries very quickly, and that's what the benefit is, quick drying. So now let me take you outside and show you how I feed bales outside to my horses throughout the day. You know, we do them a little differently outside than we do inside. So let's go outside and let me show you how we feed frozen bales. So here we are on one of the pastures, and this is one of the bales that was really frozen pretty much all around. And what you can see here is the horses are eating it from the center out, which is kind of neat. And then eventually they'll break it apart and then they'll finish it off. And as the weather comes, because we're in a warm front right now, it's going to get up to 40 degrees here in the next day or two. You know, the outside will dry off and be more pliable, and they'll eat that. But when it's frozen like this, a lot of times horses will eat from the center out, and it worked out pretty good with this. So, you know, just be aware that regardless how you put this bale up, whether it's upright or down, when the outside is frozen, they'll go for the center. Now, if you have it upright, I'll show you how those bales, it basically, the frozen part will actually strip off the sides as it gets warmer. But this bale here right now, it's only 9 in the morning. It's warm to the touch, and the sun has actually dried this off dramatically. So it's a big difference having it outside in this type of condition versus sitting, you know, in a cold spot. And, you know, like I said, I wouldn't worry about a frozen bale going out. But it does help a lot when, you know, you provide them that access. As long as it's not frozen throughout the whole thing, you're better off. Now, I'm not a big proponent of putting out round bales. And because my barn did fall, and we have to kind of cycle through them, normally I put all the round bales in hay huts. And the hay huts are basically the best way to preserve your hay. But because my hay is being exposed and I'd rather feed it out as quick as possible, I just started to throw bales loosely out. In about 2 days, normally they go through one round bale. And here's an example of a frozen bale. They started from the inside out and they just pretty much destroyed the whole thing. And you know, you get enough horses in there to do the damage, they'll eat that thing down to the bone. And as long as the hay is relatively good and the weather's pretty bad, it's a good combination. Right now it's like 25 degrees out. And like I said, we're supposed to get a heat wave coming through here. But the bottom line is you got to get this hay fed out, and especially when it's cold, you want to give your horses full access. You know, I drive around my neighborhood all the time. I see horses out with no access to hay. I think it's kind of crazy. Any livestock, for that matter, when it's cold out, you know, they need to get energy. They need to create heat. So, you know, the more you can put it out there, the better. But, you know, don't be afraid to throw these bales up. Now, normally I would be anti putting them up upright, where you have to unstring them and you have the outside open where water and hay comes down. If it was springtime and we're going to get a lot of rain, I definitely would not want to do that. I'd normally lay them on their side so the water rolls off. But because it's snow and it's colder out, you know, I decided it's not a bad thing to throw the bales out upright, because if they're upright, as the horses eat it, the hay falls down and they can get to it. And it works out pretty good. But you have to have enough horses for that to work. You know, when I have, you know, 14, 17 horses out in this pasture alone, 2 round bales, they'll destroy it. The bales that are in the feeders, they'll eat them and pick through them as they need to. And I know that they always have access to hay, all right? Maybe I have a horse that doesn't fit well into the group. They all have an ample chance to go get the food. So my hay is available probably 5 or 6 different spots, so it's really easy for horses to get to. And if you have bully horses keeping some of yours away, that's not a bad program. So, but the hay huts, they really serve as a good purpose as far as saving your hay, and I'll kind of show you the concept of them real quick. And here's a hay hut, and what I wound up putting is a very frozen bale in here, and I had a hard time pulling the strings off. But what's nice about the hay huts, as the temperature starts to heat in the plastic, a lot of times it acts like a greenhouse, and this thing will actually start to heat, and all that frozen hay will actually start to come off, and at least it keeps it dry. So if we have a lot of snow coming down or rain, I don't have to deal with that issue, and it makes a big difference. And you know, at least this hay is going to be saved. And when I throw the round bales out loose, I want those horses to get and kill those round bales as quick as possible, because if we do have inclement weather, that's good. And if your round bales get rained on or even snow, as long as they don't get doused, they're fine, and the animals will eat through them. And you know, as long as you have good quality hay, they'll definitely eat it, so you don't have to really worry about that. But my biggest suggestion, I don't care who you are and what you do, definitely take those strings off those bales. See, I don't care if they're frozen. You have to get the strings off whether you cut them or not, because if you leave the strings in, it's just going to cause all kinds of problems and injury. So get those strings off those bales. If you have net wrap, you better cut it all off, because if it's ingested by the animals, you can have intestinal issues, and you're probably going to have to be putting down your animals. So these are things you need to kind of pay attention to, and it's just being smart management. And that's my biggest advice for doing that. But don't be afraid to throw bales out. You know, and like I say, I prefer the hay huts, but, you know, with this hay down that I have now, I want to get, in the cold weather that we have, I want to basically have as much access to the horses as I can, and it makes them a lot happier. Hey guys, thanks for watching this video on dealing with frozen bales and how to dethaw them. I do think using a bullet heater is a really great idea. It works out good for me. Even if you got loose hay that's wet, you know, say you drop off the outside of the bale and you drop it down and you kind of use a pitchfork and kind of get air under it and blow the hot air in, you'd be amazed how much bales you can actually save, and it really doesn't take that long. Just remember, I'm not drying off, you know, black moldy stuff. I'm talking about drying enough hay that just got wet, and you can recover a lot of hay that way. You know, especially if you're only feeding out a few big animals. Now, as far as when it comes down to, you know, putting out frozen bales, animals know what to pick and how to pick at it. So those are really my suggestions. That's worked out well for me this year. This year's been really, really challenging all the way around, between the barn falling down, hay getting exposed, and I'm really trying some new things. But I want to pass on the things I'm learning and things I'm doing to you, and maybe that'd be really helpful. So hopefully you enjoyed the video, and hopefully you got something from it. Thanks for watching, guys. Talk to you later.